The 2023 NBA playoffs are right around the corner, and with that comes a countless number of NBA postseason predictions. Some are actually pretty solid, and some aren't so great. But have you ever thought to yourselves, is there a way that we can most accurately predict who will win the NBA Finals? A way that's better than the rest? Is there some specific number or series of stats that can most precisely tell us who will walk out of this season with a ring? Well, as you guys saw from the title and thumbnail, that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be using multiple different stats that over time have been indicators of successful postseason teams. They say numbers don't lie. Today, we're going to find exactly who will win the 2023 NBA Finals. Well, I actually lied before. Numbers do in fact lie. Sometimes. If there was a 100% accurate way to predict the champion of every year, I think Vegas would have found out that method by now. But unfortunate for all of us sports fans, there isn't a truly precise way to predict the NBA Finals. But there are definitely ways to find a somewhat accurate prediction. I mean, better than the average casual fan that puts apart a bracket the day before the playoffs start. What we're going to be doing today is looking at the stats that give us the best indicator of playoff success. The precise stats that have been proven right for decades. What we're going to do is use those same statistical categories from decades of basketball and observe the successors of those stat categories in today's game. Hopefully doing this will give us the best overview of what team has the best chances to take the trophy home. We're going to use the best stats of almost a half century of basketball. I found the numbers from championship winning teams dating back as far as the 1980 NBA season. After completing this task, there were 8 metrics that stood out to me. 8 numbers from the regular season that typically indicated success once the postseason rolled around. The first one is wins. I know, shocking, right? I mean, is this really a surprise? Teams with the highest win counts not only get home court advantage in the playoffs, not only have an easier path to win, but whatever team racks up the most wins in general is considered the best team. The average championship team had a top 3 record in the league heading into the playoffs. From 1980 to the present day, there has only ever been one championship team that has not been in the top 9 of wins, and that is the 1995 Houston Rockets, who had the 10th best record in the league that year. Throughout these 43 years, the team with the best record has won the finals 44% of the time, and the team that won it all had a top 3 record in the league in 86% of years. The next stat is margin of victory. Margin of victory is the average amount of points you beat a team by. The average championship team, similar to wins, places within the top 3 of the league. The lowest ranking team in this stat that's ever won the NBA Finals is once again the 1995 Houston Rockets, who placed 11th in the league. The team with the highest margin of victory wins the NBA Finals 40% of the time. A team with a top 4 margin of victory wins the finals 81% of the time on average. Our third stat is SRS, or Simple Rating System. This is similar to margin of victory, except the strength of schedule of a team is factored in. The average championship team, similar to the last 2 stats, places within the top 3 in the league. Once again, the only team that's ever placed outside of the top 10 of SRS and still won the NBA Finals is the 1995 Houston Rockets. And once again, the team with the highest SRS wins the NBA Finals 40% of the time. A team with a top 4 SRS score wins the finals 86% of the time. Okay, the fourth stat used is offensive rating. Offensive rating is how many points a team scores per game, adjusted to 100 possessions. Here, we see a little more variety. On average, the NBA Finals winning team of a given season places within the top 6. Over 43 years, we've only seen 2 teams placed outside of the top half of the league in this stat. The 2004 Pistons and most recently the 2022 Warriors. The team that placed within the top 5 of this category has a 56% chance of winning the finals. And fun fact, from those 14 years, we've never seen a team win the finals that's ranked exactly 4th in the league. Kinda weird. The next stat is the polar opposite of the last stat, defensive rating. Similar to offensive rating, the average finals winning team finishes top 6 in this category. We've only ever seen one team place outside of the top 10 in defensive rating, and that is the 2001 Lakers, who didn't even make the top 2/3 of the league, placing at 21. 56% of winning teams placed in the top 4, along with 93% of winning teams placed within the top 10. The next 2 stats are offensive and defensive effective field goal percentage. An effective field goal percentage adjusts for the fact that a 3-pointer is worth 1 more point than a 2-pointer. So the teams that had the highest offensive effective field goal percentage kept their opponents to the lowest field goal percentage. The average championship team placed in the top 5 in the league in this stat. Like we've seen throughout this whole video, the top 3 to 5 teams in the league throughout the decade have dominated, and here it's no different. A top 3 placing team in the league wins the finals 56% of the time. Throughout our timeline, we've only seen 2 teams that have placed outside of the top half of the league, the 1998 Chicago Bulls and the 2004 Detroit Pistons. Next, we're going to look at the opposite, defensive effective field goal percentage. The defensive side of this metric matters slightly less than the offensive side. The average winning team placed in the top 6 of the league rather than the top 5 with offensive. The top 2 teams in the league over history have won the title 35% of the time. Throughout 43 years, we've never seen a team that's placed in the bottom half of the league in this stat. And our very last stat, age. With age comes playoff experience, which we can see is a very true statement. Some of the oldest teams in the league throughout NBA history have also been the best. The average championship team placed in the top 6 in the league in this stat. There's only ever been 3 championship winning teams that have not been a top 10 oldest team in the league. The 1991 Chicago Bulls, the 2022 LA Lakers, and the 2015 Golden State Warriors. A top 5 oldest team will win a championship about 60% of the time. This table we have right here summarizes all the information we just went over. There's a lot of numbers here. The top horizontal rows show the 8 stats we used, and the vertical rows towards the left show different placements. So for example, if we look at wins and we want to know the percentage of how often a top 5 team wins the NBA Finals, well, it would be 93% of the time. As we can see, the number of wins a team racks up is easily the most important indicator of playoff success. They have the lowest average placement of 2.3, meaning on average the championship winning team places 2.3 in the league for wins. So in between second and third, but closer to second. The numbers are absurd for wins. At second and third, we have SRS and margin of victory. These stats placed almost identically, but SRS placed a hair lower. Both stats have placed under third. The fourth most important stat is offensive effective field goal percentage, having an average placement under 5. The last 4 stats, offensive rating, defensive effective field goal percentage, and age, all hover around the area between 5th and 6th in terms of average placement. Surprisingly, age was the most telling stat of these 4 playoff successes. Now that we've looked at the numbers of previous generations to show us what stats really win championships, let's put it to the test with the teams of 2023. Similar to what we did before, we're going to look at every team from 2023 with these 8 stats and determine who is most likely to win this year's championship. We're going to add up the rankings from every team from our metrics, and whatever team has the lowest score, meaning they have the lowest rankings of every team, is our favorite to win it all. Let's start it off with the most telling stat according to history, wins. The Milwaukee Bucks have the most wins in the league as of this recording, with 46. Following them up are the Celtics, Nuggets, 76ers, and Cavs. Next, let's take a look at SRS. Surprisingly, the Cleveland Cavaliers have the highest SRS at 5.6. Next to them are teams like the Celtics, Nuggets, Bucks, and Grizzlies. Next, we're going to look at a very similar stat, margin of victory. The top 5 stays the exact same with the Cavs on top, except we switch out the Sixers for the Grizzlies at that 5th spot. Now we're going to take a look at offensive effective field goal percentage. Jokic and the Denver Nuggets take first place with their deadly offense, shooting 58%. Remember, this stat accounts for 3-pointers as more valuable, so it looks inflated. Following them up are the Kings, Nets, Warriors, and Mavericks. Next, let's take a look at its opposite, defensive effective field goal percentage. Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks proved to be first with their clamping defense. They hold teams to 51.4% effectively. Following them up are the Grizzlies, Knicks, Nets, and Suns. We're going to look at offensive rating now. The Sacramento Kings placed first in this category with their lethal offense. They score over 119 points in 100 possessions. Following them up are the Nuggets, Celtics, Knicks, and Mavericks. Let's take a look at the opposite, defensive rating. The Cavs take first in this category, holding teams to only 110.1 points per game per 100 possessions. Following them up are the Grizzlies, Bucks, Heat, and Celtics. Finally, let's look at age. The Milwaukee Bucks and their senior citizens on their roster finished first with an average of 29.7. Following them up are the Clippers, 76ers, Nets, and Lakers. We finished all 8 stats. Let's add up the total. But wait, I think we're forgetting about one stat, something so obvious. It's literally what the playoffs are designed for, and it's record against over 500 teams. If this doesn't tell us who will win a championship, then I don't know what will. This is one of those stats where you don't need decades of evidence to back it up. It just makes sense. Well, anyways, the team that played the best while playing against the best is the Milwaukee Bucks, who have a record of 21-9 against above average teams. Following them up are the Denver Nuggets, Philadelphia 76ers, Boston Celtics, and Phoenix Suns. Now I think we're ready to add up the totals. The team that racked up the fewest amount of points is the Boston Celtics, with a combined score of 41 points. The Boston Celtics finished top 6 in 7 essential categories. The only real problem they struggled with is age, which could somewhat explain what happened to them in the finals last year. Everything else about them is solid. They have the combination of one of the best offenses and defenses in the game, and they play exceptionally well against good teams. At our number 2 spot is the Milwaukee Bucks with 45 points. The Bucks, as of recent, have been on fire. They just had a 16-game win streak that got snapped by Philly. Anyways, the Bucks, like usual, are really strong contenders. Their areas of strength are their lockdown defense, their age, more importantly their playoff experience, and the experience of actually winning a title, so they know what it takes. The Bucks have shown that they can get it done against good teams, and obviously their very impressive regular season record. The area holding them back is their offense at times. They placed 16th in offensive rating and 14th in effective field goal percentage, which is slightly concerning. But that's mainly because of the injuries they had throughout the season, especially missing Chris Middleton. At our 3rd spot, we have a tie with the 76ers and Nuggets with 54 points. We'll start it off with the Nuggets. The Nuggets are obviously a strong contending team. Some of their strengths are their elite offense. As we can see, they place top 2 in both offensive rating and offensive effective field goal percentage. When this team is healthy, their offense is scary. Some more strengths of this team are their record against solid teams and their overall record this year in the West. However, this team does have some glaring weaknesses. First, let's just address the elephant in the room. It's kind of hard for me to pick this team as my title favorite because year after year they choke in the playoffs, despite having really good records. And this team's defense is also shaky at times. The Nuggets placed 11th and 16th in both defensive rating and defensive effective field goal percentage, which is concerning. Okay, now let's look at the 76ers. The 76ers with the duo of Harden and Embiid could be scary in the playoffs. The thing about Philadelphia is that they don't do anything elite. They do almost everything good or even great, but nothing at a championship level like the previous 3 teams. However, they do play well against good teams. They have playoff experience on this roster. They have a good regular season record, and like I touched on, the star power potential on this team is super high. But similar to the Nuggets, this team chokes in the playoffs year after year, even worse than Denver in my opinion. And our number 5 team, the Cleveland Cavaliers, who finished with 67 points. The Cavs have surprised everyone this year. They went from a mediocre team last year to being a title contender now. Some strengths of this team are their margin of victory in SRS, placing 1st in both of them. They also have a rock solid defense, placing 1st and 8th in the 2 defensive categories we talked about. The Cavs do have some big weaknesses, however. The most obvious of them is their age. Let's just put it blunt here. The Cavs are too young to win a chip this year. I think in 2 or 3 years, they'll definitely be ready, however. I think more than likely, this postseason is going to serve as much needed playoff experience for this young core. Another area of concern for them is their record against good teams, which is 14 and 18. That's not going to cut it in the playoffs. And their offense is good, even great at times, but it's not championship level. If you guys were wondering about the other teams, here they are.
Purchase your tracks today.
So, the Boston Celtics are going to be the NBA champions this year. Well, that's what we found out. The numbers don't lie, right? Like we established earlier in this video, yes, the numbers do lie. Sometimes. The numbers are great, but there's some things that stats can't account for. The Milwaukee Bucks, despite doing extremely well with a 2nd place finish, are better than the numbers say. The Bucks have had injuries to multiple key players, mainly Chris Middleton, but also guys like Bobby Portis, Pat Connaughton, Joe Ingles, and Giannis had a small wrist injury. The numbers about the Phoenix Suns, Brooklyn Nets, and Dallas Mavericks are all largely skewed because of the trades. The Nets placed well in several stats which they otherwise wouldn't have placed without KD and Kyrie. The Suns placed 6th, despite not having KD for the majority of the season. Imagine what they could do now. And lastly, the team I believe is the most slept on, the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors have definitely had their issues like every other team this year. The Warriors are sitting slightly above 500 now in the West, despite last year finishing as a 3 seed. The Warriors have also dealt with injuries this season. The Warriors are one of those teams that's hard to judge their championship pedigree based off of just numbers. The Warriors have broken numbers several times before, like in 2017 where they won the finals as the youngest team from multiple decades, or last year where they won the finals despite having the second worst offensive rating of any championship team besides the 04 Pistons. So, it's official. The Boston Celtics are going to win the 2023 NBA Finals. Feel free to come back to this video and clown me in June when the Celtics don't win the finals. Don't forget to go bet over with our friends over at BetUS, link in description. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this.